Good evening and welcome to the Coon Rapids City Council meeting for Tuesday, October 4th, 2022. If you could please rise and join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Griskoviak.
Here.
Councilmember Ray Rauer. Here. Councilmember Hernandez Jr.
Here.
Councilmember Geisler.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Carlson.
Here.
Mayor Cook.
Here. Thank you. Why don't we adopt this evening's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Geisler, second by Carlson to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor can say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the agenda is adopted. I think I need a redo here. All right. Item 1 on our agenda that we just approved is to receive a GreenStep Cities Award presentation. Ms. Hovland, or who's going to come up?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Tonight we have Diana McCown of the Great Plains Institute here with us, and she will share a little bit about our achievement over the last year and our involvement in the GreenStep Cities program.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Good to be here. I've worked with the city since the very beginning, working with Colleen back in the day when the city was thinking about joining the program. So it's really exciting for me to be here to present your Step 4 and 5 award. The program has 5 steps, so this is the ultimate achievement. And just a couple stats. Only 3 cities achieved both step 4 and 5 this year, but there are currently 31 cities at step 5. So you're joining an elite group of 147 cities. 31 of them are at that level. Couple of things just to highlight. As you know, you installed some public electric vehicle charging stations at both the Ice Arena and City Hall here, which I took advantage of this evening. And you also joined the Soul Start program and were certified as silver, which is quite an accomplishment as well. A number of other things you recognize as a walk bike friendly city. There's I think 100% of your housing is within 1 mile of a bike route. That's pretty incredible. So there's a bunch of different things. Your Community Sustainability Partnership Program is a big highlight. And just wanted to come here and congratulate you. Here's the step 3, 4, or step 1, 2, and 3, and then here's the 4 and 5, and there's room to keep each year. You could get certified at 4 and 5 again, because it's about measuring some outcomes and improving in those metrics. So when we designed the program at step 3 and people wanted more, we had to decide about whether we would just have people do more best practices or go deeper and really dig in. And we decided to dig in and really try to show what were the accomplishments of the cities. So congratulations, this is a big deal, and we love to take a picture. I know Jennifer, right, is here. She wants to take a picture for the city, and I take one, and GreenStep Cities, we tweet it out and put it on social media. So we'd love to get it if you want to stand up there and I come up and hand it, or however you want to do it. It's up to you all.
I didn't know I was going to make decisions right away.
You're not shy about being in a picture, are you?
Normally I would go out there, but do we all want to go out there, or do we all want to just stand and cluster?
Well, that, or I can come up there, because
Oh, you could just come up here. Come on up here. Come on up around.
You don't know this. When you guys approved the agenda in the minutes, I said I back there, so I just was so, thrown by that. Oh, I need to give this to Olivia, so you can take a picture.
All right.
So here's your, does somebody want to hold this one? Okay, and then that, or I can shake your hand.
We can do whatever you want.
Everybody's still getting adjusted here.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Oh, hang on. Now we're ready again.
Long handshake. You really need it.
And we can stop if you want, if that's better. If this is better without. Awesome. Thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
your chair.
All right. The
playing
music's
musical
going to
chairs.
stop. Make sure you get your chairs.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. We don't actually have to take an action to accept that. We just, okay, very good. All right. On to item 2, approve the minutes from the September 20th meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes?
Second. Motion by Carlson and second by Hernandez Jr. to approve the minutes. Any discussion or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And the minutes are approved. We have 4 items on our consent agenda. The first item, which is item 3 on this evening's agenda, is to adopt Resolution 22-94, approving the levy of 2022 delinquent utilities. Per the city code, the delinquent utility bills should be certified to Anoka County for collection with property taxes. Utility customers have been notified by mail that payments should be made to avoid certification. The amount to be certified to Anoka County, looks like we've probably had some payments since then, but on here we've got $899,431 plus an admin fee of $40 per parcel, times 2,342 parcels. That's almost 10% of our housing, it seems, which adds $93,680 for a total of $993,111. And provision has been made to accept the utility amount without interest through 4:30 p.m. November 10th, 2022. Last year at this time, the utility cost total was $898,026. Like within $1,000 of this year? Wow, consistent. All right. So we're looking to adopt resolution number 22-94, resolution certifying delinquent utilities to taxes. Item 4, which is the second item on our consent agenda, is to approve the 2023 SCORE recycling agreement with Anoka County. Attached for council consideration is the 2023 SCORE recycling agreement between Coon Rapids and Anoka County, which funds the city's residential solid waste recycling program. The term of this agreement is January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023. The funds within this agreement are used to meet the 2023 recycling goal of 6,649 tons as set by Anoka County. And Coon Rapids is entitled to receive a reimbursement for eligible activities up to $216,626, and this amount includes $196,626, which is the total population and household allotment for the recycling program, and $20,000 dedicated to facility improvements. The 2023 recycling budget will be approved by the city and county before year's end, and the SCORE funds will be available to Coon Rapids on January 1st, 2023. So with that, we're looking to approve the 2023 SCORE grant from Anoka County and authorize staff to execute the agreement for the residential recycling program. Item 5, which is the third item on our consent agenda, adopt resolution 22-93, appointing Brian Sandberg to the Arts Commission. Mr. Sandberg has submitted an application for the Arts Commission and attended the August 16th, 2022 and the September 20th, 2020, I'll bet that's 2022, Arts Commission meetings. He's attended 2 meetings. After discussion with the applicant at the September 20th meeting, the Arts Commission recommends Mr. Sandberg be appointed to the Arts Commission with a term expiring December 31st, 2024. So we're looking to adopt Resolution 22-93, appointing Brian Sandberg to the Arts Commission with a term expiring December 31st, 2024. And then item 6, which is the fourth and final item on our consent agenda, is to adopt Resolution 22-95, approving the Sustainability Commission appointment. Courtney Carlson submitted an application for the Sustainability Commission. After discussion with the applicant, the Sustainability Commission supported Courtney Carlson's appointment to fill a vacancy with a term ending December 31st, 2023. So we're looking to adopt Resolution 22-95, appointing Courtney Carlson to the Sustainability Commission.
Your Honor,
Councilmember Rayrauer.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Rayrauer and a second by Johnson. Is there any discussion or questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Griscoviac?
I'd like to make some comments about item number 4 on the consent agenda, the 2023 SCORE recycling agreement with Anoka County, because this is going to come up a little bit later in our meeting that we're expanding that recycling center. I just wanted to point out, I think we all know that recycling center gets a lot of use, a lot of heavy use, and in calculating our allotment for this SCORE agreement, I see the Anoka County takes in total population household allotment. I'm just wondering, since we know residents from outside of Coon Rapids utilize this recycling center and we're making a big investment into it again here, I would like us to lobby Anoka County to maybe up that allotment a little bit, maybe looking more than just the total population of Coon Rapids. I know we do not ask for identification or anything when people utilize that, so just like to see that examined.
I think that was a question, and Mr. Himmer has his hand up.
There wasn't a question, but I'll take an answer.
He does have some clarification. Councilmember Griscoviac, Council, we actually just started a pilot program recently with Anoka County where we are tracking usage with that very desire. So we want to make sure that we're getting our fair share, and it may stretch across county lines. Just where are they coming from? How are they getting here? Are we getting a disproportionate amount of users based upon the programs we offer? And if so, might that relate to additional funding? So that pilot program is happening already.
Outstanding. Well, that was a good answer. Thank you, Mr. Himmer.
For no question.
Right, exactly.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
And I would just like to thank the couple of people who are being appointed to our commissions tonight. We always, and I think we still have openings on several of our commissions, so if there's anyone else interested, certainly you can reach out to our city clerk's office or on the city website and see what the commissions are. Love to have you join the team.
Thank you. And before we vote, I would just like to highlight also, when we approve the levy for the 2022 delinquent utilities, I wanted to highlight that again, that as long as you pay it before 4:30 p.m. November 10th, then there's no additional admin fees, and it doesn't go onto your taxes. So I would just highlight that date. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 7 is to consider resolutions awarding contracts for project 18-26 Recycling Center Expansion and amending the 2022 Facilities Construction Fund. Mr. Himmer, do you want to highlight any of that? Or?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, Council. This has been nearly 4 years in the making to get in front of you with what we're recommending today. We received several bids. There was 17 or 18 separate packages. There were 3 packages that we did not receive any bids on, and one that we had to throw out because they didn't complete the appropriate documentation. So we did go out and receive quotes on those 3 packages. We did have to incorporate some doors and some fire extinguishers and things under the general conditions of this, as we didn't receive a bid on that portion. So as I said, it's been a long time. We've revised this plan several times. We've cobbled together a lot of the funds, and so since it is a reimbursable grant, we have to show all of the funds available. We have to pay the bills, then we can get reimbursement as those funds go out. So it's not like we have to wait till project completion. We can request every time we get them up to the 50-50 matching grant. So we are recommending award of 15 separate contracts. We'll work with Kinghorn Construction, if council approves this, to get a construction management agreement, and then we got to hit the ground running to get a lot of this work completed in anticipation of, say, building construction over winter. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. There are a lot of numbers in here. There are a lot of numbers in the resolution, but it really boils down to we've got about a $30,000 gap, and that's primarily our building permit fees for ourselves. We got a $40,000 building permit fee. So we're hoping and we're requesting that you amend the Facilities Construction Fund to fund that gap. And then again, I'm happy to answer questions. Colleen is here, Chuck is here from Kinghorn, Ashley's here with finance questions, and so with that, I'll stand for questions.
Very good. Go ahead, Councilor Hernandez.
Mr. Himmer, so just looking at the, at all the bids here, so it looks like all the ones in red didn't comply with the requirements, so those will have to go out for bid again then?
That's already been done. Councilmember Hernandez Jr., we just went out and received quotes on those because they were under $100,000. So we were able to secure 3 quotes for those.
Okay.
Any other questions of Mr. Hammer?
So, Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Geisler?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolutions number 18 through 26, sub 9, awarding contracts for the recycling center expansion project as described herein in the memo, and to adopt resolution number 22-96, amending the 2022 Facilities Construction Fund.
Second.
Motion by Geisler and a second by Ray Rauer. Is there other discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor, I think it's
Geisler?
just that we've talked a lot. The recycling center is a phenomenal asset for our community. It is one of the reasons that we're getting into the GreenStep and making our numbers. But it's the right thing for us to do, and to be able to continue to expand and to be able to provide those services to the community is, I think, important. So I wholly support it.
Very good. There's a lot of horsepower here. Is there anything you wanted to come and tell us about today? Or we're just wanted to make sure that it went through? Yeah. All right. Very good.
Your Honor.
Councilmember Ray Rauer?
I just want to thank our recycling coordinator, Colleen Sinclair, for her work on this, and all the city staff. And I use that recycling facility very often. And every time I'm there, it is very busy, and it is in a small space. And so I'm very glad that we're able to approve this tonight.
All right. Anything else?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Griscoviac.
just a comment to echo everyone else's, but we've talked about this quite a few times over the last couple of years. So we've made some changes. A lot of people came together to collaborate to get where we are today. It's a prudent investment for our community, and I 100% back this one.
Very good. All right, if there's no further discussion, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. On to item 8, which is to consider adoption of Ordinance 2264, regulating chloride reduction. It seems like, Mr. Himmer, you gave us a bit of a highlight in this when we introduced this, didn't you?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it's primarily storage of bulk de-icing salt on large properties, and where they can be stored, where they cannot be stored, how they need to be contained. But I'm happy to answer any questions or run through it again if anyone would like to hear.
So particularly if any of our big users in town, warehouses, retail, whatever, decide they want to have on-site salt storage, they need to get in touch with you.
We're actually going to reach out to them, Mr. Mayor. We're going to do a postcard to all of them, notifying them of the changes and asking them to contact us if they have any questions.
Very good. Anybody have any questions of Mr. Himmer?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Griscoviac?
I do have a question that came from a constituent, and so this ordinance is an ordinance regulating chloride reduction. But the ordinance itself actually doesn't, we're not going to reduce chloride use in the city. It's more of a reducing environmental runoff from chloride storage. So is there anything you can say about that? Some of my constituents were asking. It's really not an ordinance to reduce chloride. We're still going to be able to de-ice our streets, our sidewalks.
That is correct, Councilmember Griscoviac. There was much more in the model ordinance for reducing chloride. This was something we felt that was enforceable on our side. We're not going to change our practice. Well, I shouldn't say we're not going to. We've already changed our practices on calibrating our equipment, identifying environmentally sensitive areas, and trying to put down less. That's one of the reasons why we don't just go out and dump salt down every time someone calls for a slippery intersection or sidewalks are slippery. We'd spend a whole lot of money and burn a whole lot of resources by doing that. So it's just to get you to think about it differently. The model ordinance did include other types of things. We just didn't think we were quite ready to go there yet. So while this is only talking about the bulk storage component, there's much more that can come to this, and we're happy to expand that conversation if and when council has that desire.
Thank you.
Your Honor.
Councilmember Ray Rauer?
Yeah, and I'd just like to add to that, we don't think of salt necessarily as being a pollutant, but when it gets into the lakes and streams, it does threaten fish and aquatic life, and it can actually contaminate drinking water. Once it's in the water, it's really difficult to get it out of the water. So when you have this big pile of salt and it rains, you know what happens to salt, it dissolves, so the water has picked it up and carries it with it down to the lake or stream, and that's what we're trying to prevent. And also the person who is storing it is going to want to prevent it from dissolving, because then their salt is just going to waste anyway. So it's just a good common sense measure to take.
Very good.
So,
We don't have a motion on this, do we?
no.
Okay.
Your Honor.
Councilmember Rayrower?
So with that, I will, I make a motion to adopt Ordinance 2264, an ordinance regulating chloride reduction.
Second.
Motion by Rayrower and a second by Carlson. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 9 is to consider adoption of Ordinance 2265, regulating cannabinoid products, or THC edibles. I still find it hard to believe that's not on agenda.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this was introduced to you at the September 20 council meeting, and hearing no changes, we've presented it to you tonight for adoption.
Very good. Does anybody have any questions of Ms. Lensmeyer on this? Anything come up since it was introduced?
Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So in reading through this, it really, again, these are common sense regulations. Having it not be right next to a school, has to be a primary licensed place of business, no door-to-door sales, no vending machines, no internet sales. We want to make sure that children aren't able to get this out of a vending machine or something like that. So with that, I will make a motion to adopt Ordinance 2265, regulating cannabinoid products, THC edibles.
Second.
Motion by Rayrower and a second by Geisler. Discussion.
Your Honor,
Councilmember Johnson.
I was wondering if Mr. Brody could just briefly address the issue of the age that is being allowed for people to use these cannabinoid edibles, and also kind of just generally summarize or provide some information to the public about what the ordinance says about them being near schools.
Well, a couple of things that we do have in there, Councilmember Johnson and Council, we do have a restriction 1,000 feet from a school. I mean, again, sort of the not having that access to children. No one under the age of 21 can buy the product. I believe that's in state statute, but this gives us an enforcement component to that, which state statute did not have or does not have at this point. So those, I think, were the biggest protections. It's modeled a lot after our tobacco and our alcohol statutes. I mean, it's in those categories. If this particular product kind of fits into those categories of needing a more heightened, I guess, scrutiny on them, and so that's why we came up with this licensing scheme. So the big things is you got to be over 21, and you can't be within 1,000 feet of selling these from a school. So I think those are the kind of the big components in the ordinance. I mean, obviously there's several other, and then one of the other key components, what makes it more intensive, I guess, and kind of the reason that you'll see in the fee structure is we'll do compliance checks and those things too, and to ensure that this product is being sold in a proper fashion.
And violating the ordinance is a crime?
It is. It'll be a misdemeanor.
Okay.
Which is the maximum crime that we can have for an ordinance violation.
Right. Your Honor, I just want to say that obviously the council is concerned about the impact of these kinds of substances on children. And so when we workshopped this among the council, that was the direction of the council. I also think it's a good idea to have a regulatory scheme in place. This all came about as a result of the change in the law recently that authorized the sale of cannabinoid edibles. And so this is just our council saying, okay, if that's what Minnesota has authorized, then we need to be able to enforce and regulate that law here in Coon Rapids. So I would support the ordinance as it's written right now, and would ask the city attorney and our police department to follow up on things when issues arise.
I can tell you it would also include our city clerk. That's what I can guarantee that. The other thing I'd point out is obviously in the end, we're still allowing this product to be sold. It's just going to be regulated like we would regulate tobacco or alcohol.
Right.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Griscoviac?
obviously, I think we're taking the right action here, the responsible action as a city, since the state legislature, approved this as a legal product statewide. With that said, I still think we do need to keep pressure on our legislators, maybe working through the League of Minnesota Cities, to see that the state legislature really buttons up and gets a lot of this in state statute. A lot of the stuff that we're addressing tonight as a city council, I think, makes sense statewide, so we have regulations that are aligned with other communities. So just wanted to throw that out there for our city staff and so forth.
Good. Consistency is usually a good thing.
Usually,
Yeah.
yes.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 10, consider planning case 22-19, consider an introduction of an ordinance, Mississippi River Corridor Critical Area. Mr. Fernelius, I did not watch when this went back, or Mr. Brown, I didn't watch when this went back to the Planning Commission. Did we have anything left to shake out of it yet?
No, Your Honor, members of the council, and I can hit some of the highlights tonight if you'd like me to. Obviously, we don't have AV currently, but I can still go through some of that. Basically, yes, we had a presentation at the September Planning Commission meeting. The commission approved the ordinance as it was proposed. There were some questions, but no modifications suggested to them. As you might remember, both the commission and the council held work sessions on this topic back in the spring. There was a fair amount of discussion out of that. We, since that time, were able to work a bit with the DNR on some of the more significant concerns. They were open to making some changes, and I think we kind of thought through some of the other issues that came up and were more comfortable with them. So obviously we're being asked to consider this ordinance by the Minnesota DNR. This is something that was approved by the legislature back about a decade ago. Since that authorization from the legislature, the DNR updated its rules as they relate to the Mississippi River Corridor Critical Area, and those rules were adopted about 3 years ago now. Since that time, cities, other jurisdictions along the corridor have been tasked with updating their regulations, so we're kind of following right in line with that and are asking you to introduce the ordinance tonight. It will be considered for adoption at the next meeting on October 18th. Just some quick highlights about some of the key provisions as they relate to what people can do with their property. Obviously, in Coon Rapids, the river corridor is very residential in nature. Most of the homes along that stretch of river were developed between about the 50s and the 70s. So more recently, we haven't had a lot of, say, new construction, but certainly people have done additions to their house, done bank stabilization projects. So it's not uncommon that we see some construction along there. So as it relates to that, the basic locations where people can build a house, build an addition to their house are not really changing. The structure setbacks for a principal structure will still be, in most instances, governed by the 40-foot setback from the top of the bluff, or 100 feet from the ordinary high water mark of the river. As it relates to building height, maximum height will still stay at 35 feet, so nothing is really changing there in terms of the bulk of structures that are allowed in most cases. One thing I'll note, the definition of a bluff is changing. Currently it's 12%, a 12% slope. That's changing a bit to effectively an 18% slope with some conditions to that. That said, in most of Coon Rapids, the bluff line is pretty pronounced. The top of the bluff is pretty pronounced, so as a practical matter, that's not really going to change. There are some new definitions in the new code that relate to what are known as primary conservation areas, and those are areas that have sensitive environmental conditions where there a few more steps to go through as it relates to construction, a few more requirements. A couple of those include the bluff impact zone, which is areas within 20 feet either side of the bluff, and the shore impact zone, which is 50% of the structure setback. So there are some additional regulations in there in those areas, but that said, we don't really envision it's going to substantially alter the way people are able to use their property. I want to touch on a little bit too water access. That's something that's new in the code. In the past, you know, there was really a setback for structures. There was no allowance for a boathouse or really anything down by the river. So, you know, arguably under the old code, you really couldn't have any structures any closer to the river than the house. There is an allowance in this new code for up to a 120 square foot water-oriented structure, so that could include something like a boathouse, storage building that's down by the river in that shore impact zone. There are also some more specific regulations as it relates to path width. Now, we know that in most of Coon Rapids, you know, there are a lot of people who have kind of mowed grass or, you know, a developed area down to the river, so nothing is really changing as it relates to them. But if there is an existing area that's more wooded, there are some width requirements to paths. That said, you know, we want to help people do the types of bank stabilization projects they maybe want and need to do, so we feel like that this width requirement can kind of coexist with some of that. But basically there's a 4-foot maximum width in the bluff impact zone for a stairway and things like that. Again, we feel that people will still be able to do what they need to do even with that, which is not really currently addressed in the code. Decks and patios are something I wanted to address as well, because this is actually an area where the requirement becomes a little bit less strict. So it's possible to encroach into that required setback with a deck or patio, provided certain conditions are in place, but it would be possible for someone to do a smaller deck, for instance, that encroaches no more than 15% into the required setback areas, whereas right now decks would be subject to that setback of the principal structure. Similarly, there will be an allowance for expanding structures with non-conforming setbacks from the river, so it will be possible to do lateral expansions as long as the structure isn't getting any closer to the river. There will be a few more options for people there. And then finally, I wanted to touch on a couple of new permits that will be required and that the city will need to administer that relate to vegetation management and land alteration. We are proposing that these will be free permits. We don't envision we'll be issuing a whole lot of them just because there aren't that many properties along the river. But again, it's something where we want to be able to work with people. We want to encourage them to you know, apply for the permit where it's required. So basically for vegetation, again, in those primary conservation areas like along the bluff, if someone is doing more significant tree removal, they'll need a permit for that. Again, it is possible to remove trees as part of a bank stabilization project. It's possible to remove trees as part of a construction project. The goal is really that people aren't removing, you know, substantially more trees than what's necessary for that project. Similarly, land alteration. Now, most larger construction projects along the river are requiring a watershed permit from the Coon Creek Watershed District already. So this will be kind of another layer that the city will administer. But again, you know, we just want to make sure that if people are doing a substantial amount of grading, they're not grading their lot in a way that's going to really adversely affect erosion control measures or create problems for their neighbors. And then just a quick update on the status. As it stands right now, obviously there are dozens of cities along the Mississippi River corridor and the Twin Cities region where these regulations apply. As it stands right now, just related to our neighbors, the cities of Champlin and Ramsey have adopted their ordinances, are in the process of administering them. Both Anoka and Fridley are kind of in the same camp as we are, where they're going through the approval process as well. Brooklyn Park is a little bit farther behind, but our immediate neighbors either generally have adopted it or close to adopting it, so we're kind of in the middle of the pack. So I'll note, in addition to introducing the main MRCCA ordinance, you're also asked to introduce an ordinance that relates to vegetation management and public rights of way. So this is another minor change that the DNR is asking us to make to our property maintenance code, so a different section of the code. So we're kind of taking those as two different ordinances. Happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we ask that you introduce these and consider them for adoption in a couple weeks.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
Mr. Brown, I have one clarification kind of question, where I know that when we talk about the Mississippi River corridor, that we talk primarily about the lots that abut the river, right? But if we look at the map of where this covers in our city, there are several areas where it's the houses across the street from the river or 2 streets across from the river that are still within this corridor and would be subject to, and it's really more the vegetation permits that would be required for those homes. And so I just want to make sure, that people, who live a block or 2 off the river, if you're going to start to do a big project with tree removal or anything like that, that please check in with the city. I mean, it would be a free permit, but you would be covered or required to comply with the regulations if your home is within the critical area. And so it's just not things attached to the river or on the river. There are some things past the river that would be included as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is a very good point. I will note too, and we will have a new webpage going live once this is adopted that will have links to some pretty high quality interactive mapping tools that the DNR has put together. So people will be able to look at that and just be able to see, one, is their property in the critical area? If so, are there any of those primary conservation areas or anything unusual? Because for those lots that don't back up to the river, for the most part, the base zoning requirements still apply. As it relates to vegetation management, yes, if there is a significant vegetative stand, if there is, one of those other primary conservation areas, if there happens to be a bluff line, I know, for instance, along Coon Creek, there are some steeper slopes that meet the definition of a bluff. So if there are conditions like that, that shows up on those interactive mapping. For most people, if you live on the north side of Mississippi Boulevard, it's pretty unlikely that there are going to be those conservation areas. So it's unlikely that vegetation permit will even apply. But certainly there are some instances where it would.
Yeah, I think if you're more Mississippi Drive or towards the hospital, it's some of those properties in there that I would be more concerned about being aware of the new ordinance.
Your Honor.
Councilmember Johnson?
It almost sounded like we just told a bunch of people that were a couple blocks off that if you got an oak tree to take down, now's the time to get her done. So, one of the questions I have is a lot of people, especially along the river, have docks that they need to store over the winter. Could you speak to that issue? Because I think there's some concern of some people that it might make it very difficult for them to access the river if they have to remove docks from a bluff area or something along those lines.
Yeah, Councilmember Johnson, that's right, and that was one issue that came up last spring in the DNR's model ordinance. We had some concern that there was an implication in there that if someone was in a bluff impact zone, it is not possible to temporarily store a dock or other equipment in that bluff impact zone. And we know that, again, in Coon Rapids with a more pronounced bluff, it's impractical in some instances for people to haul their dock up and down. So we did work with the DNR on that. If there is a situation where it's just not practical, not feasible for someone to bring in their dock, it is possible for them to store it in that bluff impact zone or store it down by the water. And certainly where there isn't a bluff in the shore impact zone, it is possible to seasonally store docks and other equipment.
I really want to commend you and the city and others that have been involved in this in getting the ordinance to where it is today, because you know, this battle, if you will, has been going on for over a decade. And if you look at the reasonableness of the ordinance as it's written today versus what was proposed back 12 or 13 or 14 years ago, it's a remarkable difference. I mean, it really is. And so thank you for listening, and thank you to the DNR for being reasonable and dealing with people, because as this critical area spans from just south of Hastings to all the way up, you know, abutting Sherburne County, the uses are so intensely different along those ways, and some of the areas are a little bit more natural, and of course we have a pool above a dam, and it's a completely different kind of use. So I'm much more comfortable with the ordinance as it's written today, and I was frankly adamantly opposed to the way it was written in the past. So thank you very much.
All right, any other questions on this one? All right then. In planning case 22-19, we are going to consider the ordinance revising the Mississippi River Corridor Critical Area and amending City Code sections 11-1001 through 11-1001.12. We're going to consider those introduced. And the ordinance revising regulations related to vegetation management and amending City Code Section 8-504, we will also consider introduced. Does that work for you, Mr. Brody? It does. All right.
Great.
All right. And we'll address these at the next council meeting. So if anybody does have any concerns about this at home, if you're watching this, make sure you get in touch with staff or us before we pass this ordinance at the next council meeting. All right. Item 11, consider introduction of ordinances revising fees for 2023. Ms. Hanson, do you want to talk about these?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. So for your consideration this evening is introduction of two ordinances that would revise fees effective 2023. The first of which adjusts certain license fees, service fees, and related charges. There are fees under this ordinance that are set by state statute, and those did not change for 2023. Other fees in this ordinance, we applied a 4% adjustment factor. We requested a rate change only if the adjustment was enough to be rounded to the next significant dollar amount. Proposed changes in this ordinance show 22 adopted fees as well as the proposed 2023. The second ordinance relates to building inspections. This particular ordinance, we haven't adjusted building inspection fees since 2018. So when we looked at fees in this ordinance, we looked at it as on a per trip basis. So in the table that establishes fees for based on valuation, we've only requested a change to the base value from $49 to $60. And then any other fees that are exceptions to that, if it requires one inspection or one trip, the proposed fee is $60. If it requires two, then the proposed fee would be $120. In addition to these two ordinances, the requested changes for alcoholic beverages, the state law requires a public hearing. So in addition to introducing these two ordinances, we're asking the city council to set a public hearing for October 18th to consider these increases. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So just to Let me just get a clarification on these trip charges under building inspection. So the first one, we're looking at the first trip fee, we're looking at raising from $49 to $60.
Yes.
But then the second one, we're looking at raising it from $77 to $120.
Yes.
That's not 4%, right? I
It is.
haven't done my math for a while, but.
Perhaps I can
Yeah.
Mr. Fernelius, didn't see you coming.
Yeah, obviously, this is a fee that the Community Development Department would impose. So I think you're referring to the reinspection charge. I guess just a little bit of context. So this is a discretionary charge. We really are using this as kind of primarily with contractors. It's mostly an incentive to avoid additional inspections. So this isn't necessarily a service that we're trying to provide. We're really trying to discourage additional trips. And when we do, we wanted to apply that base charge, if that makes sense, to each subsequent trip. So that's why there's this incremental increase, if that makes sense.
Okay, so we're trying to encourage better behavior.
We are, that's correct.
Mayor, Council, as Grant mentioned, that one is more of almost a penalty for having scheduled something, we go out there and then we have to come back. As Ms. Hanson mentioned, most of these fees, if not all the ones being presented here, have not been changed for several years, which is why you're seeing a more significant increase as opposed to the fees that are listed in the resolution. So that's why we're calling more attention to the building inspection fees, because it's been since 2018.
Correct.
2018 since they've been increased. So we're catching up a little bit to the current labor costs for those inspections in 2023.
Just two other, which I'm sure you know which ones they are. So I can't imagine we do many mobile home installation occupancies, but that one's going from 77 to 120, and that's just one trip, it sounds like.
Actually, I believe it's two. So
Oh,
there's an initial when they set the mobile home, and then there's the final related to completion of a project. You're right. I don't think there are a ton of those. I don't remember the last one, but there are two trips involved in that.
So we weren't charging enough for that then, really?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I want to hear about ductwork.
Yeah, that's where, and that's my next one. Residential basement finished ductwork is going from $49 to $120.
I'm laughing because we had a conversation about this earlier today.
Pretty sure they won't be laughing that are doing residential basement ductwork.
Yeah, I don't mean to make light of the fee, but that is another trip that actually involves both a rough-in and a final inspection. So again, that's why we're.
Dual trip one.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, no, and that makes sense then. I was just trying to understand with, related to 4%, that didn't factor, so.
Right.
Thank you.
Your Honor.
Councilmember Johnson?
So I appreciate the kind of deterrent factor of having the higher fee for the return visit. But I think there's another way to look at this too, and I just want to make sure it's all going to depend upon how the city conducts itself with respect to these things, because there are going to be contractors that are going to say, you failed me for just one de minimis little thing, and then you came back out for something that really I could have fixed within minutes, or it would have been an easy thing for me to resolve at that point in time. What I don't want to hear is what I heard before I came onto this council, which was 8 years ago. What I don't want to hear down the road is that people are feeling like they're being failed for de minimis little things, and that's causing a revisit and then a second charge. The classic thing that contractors used to say is, if you didn't have the house numbers screwed in, to the house, they use that as a reason to come back and redo an inspection or something like that and incur another charge. So I just say that as a way of saying, I appreciate the reason it's in there. Let's never let the city get back to where it was in the past, where there was a perception by some that we were unnecessarily requiring a second visit. So, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of Mr. Fernelius? All right. If there's no other questions on this, then we will consider, let me get down here. An ordinance to revise certain license fees, service fees, and related charges effective January 1st, 2023. We'll consider that introduced. And an ordinance establishing permit and inspection fees for the Building Inspections Division effective January 1st, 2023. We'll consider that introduced. And then we'll need to set a public hearing for the last one. And that'll require a motion, I would imagine.
I would ask for that.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Geisler?
I move that we set a public hearing for the changes to our alcoholic beverage licenses for Tuesday, October 18th, 2022.
Second.
Okay.
Do I need to say 7 PM?
Yep, there we go, 7 PM. All right. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so our public hearing is set for October 18th at 7 PM regarding the fee increases for on-sale 3-2 malt liquor, off-sale 3-2 malt liquor, tavern license, on-sale intoxicating liquor license, micro-distillery cocktail room license, and brewer tap room license. All right, and we are on to item 12, which is to consider loan servicing contract with the Center for Energy and Environment. Mr. Grant, do you want to talk about that, or do you want me to read your notes? We have a big fat folder there.
Wow.
We're not going to go through all that, are we?
I wanted to be prepared.
Yeah, so, oops. So this is a quick recap, and all this obviously is in your report in front of you. But the City of Coon Rapids has offered a variety of different home improvement programs and down payment assistance programs for a number of years, since 2000. And we did work with a servicing company to administer, or to service those loans, which means collecting the monthly payments, working with the borrowers to get their loans paid off, or set up, paid off, if they, when they went to either sell their house or just pay off the loan, provide satisfactions. And so, to provide those services. The servicing company that we had been working with, we've a number of different issues with, so we were looking at other options. And so at this time, we would like to enter into a contract with the Center for Energy and Environment, who is a local nonprofit. They do provide these services to a number of different communities in the metro area. And they do have capacity to take on more contracts, more cities. And they actually already do administer our home improvement loans. So currently they do originate the loans for us. So there is an advantage that they already have all of the borrowers, the loans, the information in their system. Of course, we just need to work with our previous service provider for the loan servicing to get the information about what are their loan, what are the amounts that are still due, and other information like that. So we'd be working through that transition. The current contract that we just terminated with the previous provider is going to be, will end December 31st, 2022. And then we were proposing that the new contract with the Center for Energy and Environment start the first of the year for all existing loans. We're also proposing that any loans that are originated between now and then are going to just go directly to the Center for Energy and Environment for servicing, so that we're not toggling back and forth between servicing providers.
Okay. Mr. Grant, it seems like the last time we discussed the interest rates on the programs, we set them really low, and interest rates have more than doubled since then.
Right.
Have we taken a look at the rates on those yet? Or are we planning to, or?
That is a good question, Mayor, and I think about that every time I talk about and promote the home improvement loans, and certainly every time we pay an invoice for the loans that we have originated in any given month. But yes, we did set those interest rates back when the market was also providing very low interest rates, and things have changed. So I believe it was only just last fall that we changed those interest rates. So I think it's definitely worth considering this fall for 2023 to maybe adjust them, because we've been doing a much higher volume of loans this year than we normally do through the low-interest loan program. Of course, we have other loan programs that are not affected by the interest rates. We do have deferred financing for lower-income households that have a 0% interest, and we have other grant programs that obviously don't have interest rates because they're outright grants. But yeah, I think we definitely need to look at that, because we've been doing high volume.
Yeah.
And I don't think
I'll
we
bet.
necessarily need to be providing interest rates that low.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody have any questions of Mr. Grand on this?
Your Honor.
Councilmember Johnson?
Just to Mr. Brody or Mr. Stemwedel, I'm assuming this is a discretionary thing. It's not something that needs to be put out for bid.
That's correct.
Okay.
Professional service contract.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Kraskowiak?
Kristen, could I, the fee structure itself, how does that compare between the old servicing and the new servicing provider?
Yeah, so the fee structure obviously does have changes, from our previous loan servicer to our proposed new loan servicer. There are, some of the fees are higher, a couple of them are a little bit lower. And so for instance, the previous loan servicer provided or charged $6 a month to collect a monthly payment for the regular low-interest loan program, whereas the new loan servicer would be charging $12 a month for collecting that information. So that is the biggest of the changes. All the other changes are fairly similar. And in fact, like I said, there's a couple that are lower. The previous loan servicer charged $2 a month for the deferred loans because there are no monthly payments on those loans to collect. The new service provider would charge $0 per month, because again, there's nothing to do on a monthly basis. So there are some offsets, but again, the biggest fee is going from $6 to $12 a month. But what we get on the flip side of that is a lot less staff time that we've taken to resolve issues with the servicing of those loans. So even though it is more money per month, it's going to mean a lot less staff time to manage it.
And I would presume better service to our residents, right,
Yes,
through that service.
yes.
Correct, thanks.
Your Honor.
All right, Councilmember Rayrower?
So I was able to participate in Home for Generations 2 before I was a city council member. My husband and I added on a family room to our house and also made some updates to the front of the house. And we had our home improvement loan through Center for Energy and Environment, and it was very streamlined, great service, and I am happy to support this. So with that, I make a motion to approve the loan servicing agreement with the Center for Energy and Environment and authorize the mayor and city manager to execute the same.
Second.
Motion by Rayrower and a second by Carlson. Is there further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Grand. Item 13, we're looking at consider introduction of an ordinance establishing licensing fees for cannabinoid product sales. And this is an introduction only, but Ms. Lensmeyer, do you want to tell us anything about it?
Mr. Mayor and council members, this will establish the fee for the recently enacted ordinance to regulate and license cannabinoid products. We have modeled it after the fee for intoxicating liquor, as staff believes that it will be as much, if not more work than liquor to get it up and running.
Very good, thank you. Anybody have any questions of Ms. Lensmeyer on this? Hearing none, we will consider the ordinance establishing license fees for cannabinoid product sales introduced. Item 14 is to consider appointment of election judges, approve salaries, and set the canvass date for general election. Ms. Lensmeyer?
Mr. Mayor, council members, before you is the list of election judges that have agreed to serve for the November 8 general election. We are well staffed at this point. If anybody still feels the call to serve, we are forming an alternate list in the event of illness, injuries, things that happen along the way. I am also recruiting for student election judges. If you know any students, we'd welcome them to the polling locations. We'd love to teach them the process. Staff recommends that we leave the salary as it currently is, as outlined in the memo, at $15 per hour for head judges, $13 for assistant head judges, $11 for students and regular election judges. We have longer to canvass than we do for the primary, so we can go all the way to November 15th. That's your regular meeting night, so we suggest that 6:45. Rather than a work session, we would have a special meeting to canvass the election results, and stand for any questions you may have.
Nice. All right. Councilmember Rayrower?
Ms. Lensmeyer, what is the age for student judges?
Councilmember Rayrower, Mr. Mayor, it is 16. So if you are 16 and are interested in learning about the process, we'll get you trained and we'll put you in a location. We'll even staff you with a buddy if 2 of you want to do it, so.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So we've got
So-
4. Councilmember
I can take it.
Geisler, thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor, I want to make a motion to approve the appointment of election judges as outlined in our attached list. Motion to authorize our city clerk to appoint and assign election judges during the 25 days preceding the election if substitutions are necessary. And 3, move the hourly salary for election judges at $11 per hour, assistant head judges at $13 per hour, head judges at $15 per hour, and student judges at $11 per hour. And if I can include this in that, and to move that we conduct our special meeting and canvass the results of the general election at 6:45 p.m. on Tuesday, November 15th.
Second.
Motion by Geisler and a second by Rayrower. And that word you used was approve the hourly salary, not remove the hourly salary, right?
Did I say?
I'm just checking. It sounded like remove, but I'm not sure. All right. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion?
Yeah, I'll just say, I spent many, many years as an election judge before I came on council, and it is a really fun, interesting thing to do. So anybody, if you have any questions of, are our elections safe? Are our elections secure? How are our elections done? The best way to learn and know is to be an election judge and be part of the process and understand that it is safe and it is secure and how it all works. So, you know, there are potentially still more spots, so encourage anybody, because I think, if I remember right, that if election judges are allowed time off from work for many
Councilmember Geisler, Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
Yeah. So come on and sign up to be an election judge. It's a very fun event and a fun day, and you get to meet a lot of people and learn the process and be part of it. It's very fun.
All right. We have a motion and a second on this. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Thank you all for being so patient. I assume that you're here for this next section. We are now at the open mic public comment portion of our meeting. And I'll just give you a quick little overview of open mic. Open mic provides an opportunity for the public to address the city council on subjects that are not part of the regular meeting agenda. The public is invited to express any concerns they may have which are relevant to the affairs, policies, or practices of the city of Coon Rapids. Remarks will be limited to 3 minutes. Should you wish to participate in open mic, please approach the podium and state your name and address before addressing the council. All remarks will be made from the podium and addressed to the council as a whole. Open mic is not a time for problem solving or reacting to the comments made, but for hearing the speaker for informational purposes only. Any questions from council will be for clarification only. If necessary, a staff report will be prepared for the next regular council meeting with a copy forwarded to the speaker. So whoever would like to start us out tonight, please approach the podium and give us your name and address, and you've got 3 minutes.
My name is Charlene Goldart. My address is 10940 Crooked Lake Boulevard, Coon Rapids. And thank you for the opportunity to express my thoughts here. What is the reality of affordable housing? An affordable senior apartments banner caught my eye in 2016. I was one of the first to move into River North Apartments by Dominium in December of 2016. This was to be my forever home. My monthly rent was $1,064. On December 1st, 2022, my rent will be $1,506, up from $1,335. My Social Security is $1,470. And I looked it up, the average Social Security check is $1,542. Dominium participates in the affordable housing program known as Section 42, or LIHTC, the Low Income Housing Tax Credit. They base yearly rent increases on the maximum allowable amount determined by HUD and the AMI, which is the Area Median Income. How can seniors' fixed incomes be part of the AMI calculation? Why are developers who claim to offer low-income housing allowed to use the maximum allowable increase? The reality is they are phasing out low-income tenants. The Affordable Senior Apartments banner is still hanging on my building. This is an egregious lie. I am fortunate and healthy enough to be able to work a part-time job that I love. Many of my friends and neighbors do not share this good fortune. We all want to feel some peace of mind regarding our future housing. It's not just about the money, it's about our mental health. Do the math. How long can this continue before seniors are bled dry of every limited financial resource they may have? Where in Coon Rapids will we be allowed to establish a homeless seniors encampment? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Richard Johnson. I also live at 10940 Crooked Lake Boulevard in River North Apartments. And I'm going to read a statement that I sent to the Minnesota Housing Bureau today. My name is Richard Johnson. I'm 77 and live at River North Apartments with my wife Tony. We sold our house because the maintenance and upkeep was getting harder and the steps were hard on my wife. River North is a beautiful building with many amenities. Our apartment has a walk-in closet, a laundry room, and a balcony. The building has a great room, a TV room, a physical room, and a hair salon. We qualified to get an apartment because we were classified as low income. The rent was just affordable for us, and the assistant manager there assured us that yearly increases would probably be $20 to $30 a month. That was a figure we felt we could handle. We have been here 1 year now, and our rent went up $171 per month. This means we have to watch every dollar we spend. If we would get another increase of that size, we would have to move to a less desirable location. Finding a good apartment is very difficult in today's market. Dominion built River North Senior Apartments as an affordable housing apartment, was given federal, state, and city cash and tax breaks. Sadly, an increase of 12.5% has made it unaffordable to many seniors living there. Some tenants have already been forced out as they could not absorb this increase. We like living here. Our apartment is fine and management here is fine, as well as the maintenance people. However, Dominion has policies and fines we have found to be extreme. If I would need to move to a smaller and cheaper apartment, I would have to pay $400 to process paperwork. I would also have to pay $200 to have my carpets cleaned. If I would miss picking up a piece of my dog's poop, I would have to pay $300. If I was a smoker and lit up a cigarette in the wrong place outside, I would have to pay $300. We have a security door at the entrance to our elevator that is propped open with a sign saying the IT department is working on it. The sign has been up for weeks. It can take up to 2 months to get an air conditioner fixed. We are told parts have to be shipped from overseas. What is wrong with getting parts in the United States? In summary, I believe fixed income seniors need a safe and secure building that is affordable and has stable price increases in the 3 to 5% range. This would eliminate most of the stress and fear that we are now experiencing.
Thank you. Wow, you must have practiced that. You was right at 3 minutes. That was excellent. Thanks, Richard.
My name is Dawn Cordes, and I also live at 10940 Crooked Lake Boulevard at River North Senior Apartments. Every transition in life requires affordable housing, whether you're a student or you're a single parent or you've disabled or you've lost your job. Those facts of life are just for us. And of course, aging is for sure one of them. My mother lived in her home, and it was her wish to die at 99. Well, she didn't wish to die then. She wished to stay at her home, and that was exactly what my brother and I wanted to provide for her. So I did stay with her, lived with her through that, and I was able to see all her transitions too in the aging process. She started out as being very independent and, was very active, and it just ebbed away. And so that will be what I'm looking forward to too. So when I started, after Mom passed, to look at a place, I went to Spring Lake Park Legends, also by Dominion, and I was so excited because it was in my hometown, it was really nearby, and I signed up for it. It was going to be 55 plus senior housing. And in the interim, before it opened, I was unable to make the move because of physical reasons, and so I had to renege on that thing. 6 months after it opened, I was in a position to make a move. I went back there, and it had now changed to 50 plus, and only one person had to be 50 years old, and there could be as many as they could fit in the apartment. So that really was not affordable. I went there on my own inspection because I had heard this, and I saw dogs, kids running up and down the hall, and the place was appalling because it was in disrepair after 6 months. I left to find River North, and I was delighted when I found it was going to be 55 plus, and all those things were in place. I wanted to remain active and as independent as possible, so I chose this as my home. After inconsistent and unknown fees, along with the now 12.5 rent increase, has caused fear, anxiety, stress, not to mention loss of friends and my community. If I am economically evicted, I'll transition again, but without a viable place to go. I wanted to grow old gracefully and with dignity. Now I'm just going to grow old.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Well, obviously I'm part of this group. Live at 10940 Crooked Lake Boulevard, and my name is Jan, alias Braggle Woman. And I actually want to talk about you. I want to talk about the city council, that I didn't realize that you have the power you have. And the reason I'm saying that is because of what happened in St. Paul. They passed a voting ballot, they got it on the voting ballot about the rent stabilization, and more than 60,000 people voted for that, and they passed the ordinance as a referendum, correct? And then 8 people, 7 council members, and the mayor said, we're not going with that, and threw it out. They just canceled it and gave the developers what they wanted. They even went retroactive. And those people don't get the 3%. So what's the point of voting if you have that power? You know, why are you not using it then when you hear about Dominion? And I understand you bring businesses in to the city to give you money, to other businesses, to bring money in. And do you vet these businesses? Do you check their references or, you know, their reputation? Because Dominium's in 18 states and it's notoriously legendary bad. It's a bad actor, bad behavior. I compiled 1.5 inches of evidence against Dominium, and our seniors paid to print that and provide packets to politicians. One of them, Carrie got, and she was so graceful to give part of some of the severity of what Dominium is doing to seniors to other city council members. And it's just frustrating to me that they're here in this city. And Ned Carroll, the Plymouth City Councilman, came to our protest in front of the corporate office, protesting what Dominium's doing to seniors, and he wanted to know why we were mad. And after hearing what we had to say about Dominium, he said, I am embarrassed this company is in my city. Why are you not embarrassed that they're here? Why are you not using your power to stop them? He's right when we're saying on top of 75% of our income being taken for rent, they charge us for things like, okay, that dog poop. One lady missed picking up a nugget. They charged her $300. She said, I'll give you $150 this month. Remember, we're extremely poor. And they go, okay, $150. The next month she comes with $150, $87 late fee. This is what Dominium's doing. I'm asking you to use your power to stop this, to tell them you don't want them in your city. You don't. You shouldn't. And if you stop the bucks coming to them all the time, they would change their behavior because nobody's doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Anybody else here for open mic this evening? Yes, sir.
I'm not going to talk about the
Okay.
My name is Bill Gallup. I live at 10455 Drake Street, Northwest, here in the beautiful city of Coon Rapids. One of the reasons I moved to my house 8 years ago was it was close to the 850, 852 bus line. I was working down at the University of Minnesota at the time. In the last several years, and I understand COVID had something to do with this, the mass transit, the view of mass transit in the northern counties has gone to the dogs. I was notified this week by Metro Transit that the 805 was now a once every 2 hour bus instead of once an hour. Coon Rapids is, as the biggest city in Anoka County, has abysmal mass transit. 805, 852, 850, they've basically taken the North Star away from us. I'm asking you as council, when Met Council comes to you asking for input, please tell them that Anoka County, northern metro area, we want buses. For those are low-income folks, that's the only way they can get around. For those who are higher income, such as myself, it's a convenience. I love taking the bus. And I would encourage the council to bring back, or to at least increase, if not keep from dying, what limited bus service we have here in Coon Rapids. Thank you.
Thank you. Your Honor, might I just ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Sir, I appreciate you raising this issue because I actually bought the house I bought for the same reason, proximity to the 850 and 852 line. When did you start noticing the change?
COVID, when COVID kicked in. When COVID kicked in, I was then working at a facility in Eden Prairie in the office complex near United Health. And I was looking forward to be able to take the Green Line extension, Southwest Transit Way, to my office. I would have had the open stop would have been less than a quarter mile from my desk. Unfortunately, I got laid off and lost that. But as the ridership decreased during COVID, and understandably, I saw municipalities using that as an excuse, saying that nobody wants to ride the bus. Well, no, around the entire metro area, the bus ridership went down.
Right.
Bus ridership is coming back. And we want, so I don't really talk about, you have the power, or you encourage businesses to come to Coon Rapids. If somebody lives in Hennepin County or Ramsey County, the only way they can get here is on the 850, well, really the 852, because the 850 would be running too late. There's no way for people who take the bus to come up here to work.
Right.
So I just encourage, Council, I encourage you to take a look at mass transit, what it can do for our community. And so anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for Mr. Stemwedel, when we write up the response to this gentleman, if we could have a little historical summary in there of what we've seen, and if we could reach out to Metro Transit, especially that 850 and 852 line, I'd like to know that myself.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Good. Is there anybody else here to address council this evening for open mic? Anybody else? All right, we will close the open mic portion of the meeting. I don't have any reports on previous open mics, and we are on to other business. And I know tomorrow is the last farmer's market, so that'll be a good day to get your produce and stuff. And what other business do we have? The fireman's open house was fabulous on Saturday.
Yeah.
That, it was going to be canceled last year because they didn't want to bring everybody into the stations when there was another surge in COVID. And so they called an audible, put everybody together down at the Sand Creek Park, and it was such a great event last year. This year, that was deliberate. We're just going to do it down there. And gosh, it was well attended and it was great. Yeah.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, a lot of good feedback on the open house, the fire open house. We are expecting to have the open house at the new Fire Station 3 next year, sort of, again, a single point open house, a lot of parking in the area, a lot of extra space to do the demonstrations and the various things that we're able to do at Sand Creek, but to show off the new building, and it'll be open hopefully sometime that June or July, so we should have a little extra time then to spiff everything up before we invite the public in October.
34,000 square feet. We should have room for some folks.
We do, yeah.
All right, great. And Chief, your police were well represented there. They had the canine costs was there, and everybody's favorite target had the bite arm on, Officer Plotz. So it was a very nice event.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Other business to come before council? Thursday, big community event. The Coon Rapids Rotary Club is hosting their annual Oktoberfest sampler. You got Alloy coming down there, and 7 other breweries and a distillery, and tickets are $40 at the door, and all the money goes for local charities, really, local things. So, okay.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Johnson, second by Carlson to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.